Assassin's Creed Origins, the newest and oldest game in the Assassin's Creed series. It just came out, and after playing it obsessively for the past week, you can be sure I've got lots to say. Let's start with non-spoiler talk. I think this is a very good game. Not the best Assassin's Creed by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly up there. The setting is new, interesting, and something that hasn't really been done in a full game like this before, unless you count Wizard 101, which I do. And there's certainly a little excitement that comes from sliding down the pyramids of Giza and delving into ancient Egyptian tombs like an ancient Egyptian Lara Croft. The graphics are of course the prettiest of any Assassin's Creed to date, but that's always the case. And of course there are several changes to the standard Assassin's Creed gameplay and level design that I quite enjoyed. Ever since Unity, they've been trying to find the perfect balance for combat difficulty and accessibility, by which I mean a normie's ability to understand and succeed at it, like me. It's a slippery spectrum to be on, as proved by all the games in the series. Too much on the accessibility and you end up with Assassin's Creed 2 combat where you press 2 buttons to win every encounter, but too far on the other side and you end up with Assassin's Creed Unity combat which, if I'm honest, I couldn't even explain how to do it properly now. I'm not sure if Origins is at that perfect point or not. I suppose that's up to where you think the perfect point is. Me personally, I found it a bit complicated at first, but by the end I was able to succeed at it, so I call that pretty good. The other big gameplay change was the removal of Eagle Vision. Going into the game I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this. I've always liked good old-fashioned emotional X-ray vision.
Referred to as Eagle Vision, this sixth sense helped your ancestor understand the intentions of people around him.
Close enough. I was worried that the Eagle control power that replaced it would just be an irritating gimmick that I never used, but I have to say, boy is that Eagle useful. Possibly even more so than traditional Eagle Vision, and I used it for almost every location I went to. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense though. How exactly are Senna and Bayek communicating here? Is it telepathic? Is the bird making hand signs? Is the bird cawing in specific ways and Bayek is able to understand? How long is an eagle's lifespan? Because the game takes place over several years and the bird was already older when you get him. Seriously, how does that eagle communicate? I digress. It's a cool new thing, but I don't think we'll see it coming back in future games. It might, but I doubt it. Those were the things I liked. Now let's tear it apart, shall we? Let's get critical. This game added an inventory system completely new to the Assassin's Creed franchise, and I kind of hate it. My main problem is the problem of any traditional RPG, that this was clearly trying to emulate, and that's inventory clutter. Granted, it might not be as big a deal as some other games, as I don't think there's an inventory cap, or at least I never hit it, but it just annoys me. Especially when you pick up all those Uplay weapons and there's no useful for them and they can't get rid of them, so you just carry them around. Anyway, it was clearly assistant to make the game more RPG-ish, but I definitely prefer the older styles of unlocking things and keeping them forever. It's better for my completionist sensibilities, but hey, that's just me. The other non-spoiler complaint is just the removal of the Animus database feature. I realise it's probably a thing that takes a long time to create and not a lot of people use it, but there's some story things that I'll mention later that it would have been really useful to quickly look at the database and learn more of the history of it. Because not only is history really interesting, it is, but it would also provide context to what's happening around you as the story progresses. Or maybe it could help explain how an eagle is able to communicate tactical information to a man hiding in a hay bale. Spoilers incoming. If you want to remain spoiler free, skip to this point. 3, 2, 1. I found the story of Assassin's Creed Origins to be lacking, especially compared to the last game, which held in my opinion one of the best stories of the series. The game has some serious pacing issues right from the start. You open with Bayek standing as the pharaoh marches past, and then suddenly you're in a random tomb, brutally killing a guy and cutting yourself on the arm. It was a bit of a WTF moment because you really had no idea who you were, where you were, what was going on, or why it was important. Kinda essential stuff if you're expected to get invested in the story. Compare this to the start of Syndicate, where we see Henry Green explaining the situation in London, followed by an introduction to the Fry twins, where we quickly see who they are, what their individual goals are, and what their relationship is. It may not be the flashiest intro, but it's simple and effective, and that's all you really need. The story, as you find out later in Origins, is that of a tragic father seeking vengeance against the people who murdered his son, and that's pretty good as concepts go. But if the game had started by developing the parental bond only to have it ripped away, it would have had a greater effect than just trying to decipher your own backstory as you play. Because when you do reach that scene later, you already know what's going to happen, which really takes away a lot of the punch of a very emotional scene. I'm guessing they wanted to try something different, and that doing it the way I suggest would probably have them accused of ripping off Assassin's Creed 2, But hey, people loved Assassin's Creed 2. If you're gonna rip something off, it might as well be the best, right? Let's move on. It may have been revealed in the trailers, but I was completely unaware this game had not one, but 3 playable characters. Bayek, Aya, and... What was her name again? Let me check. Layla! I'm fine with having multiple protagonists. GTA 5 proved how well it can work, and most of the Assassin's Creed games have had at least 2. But the system only works if you fully develop each of the characters, and while I perfectly understood Bayek, I really didn't care about Aya or Layla. Let's start with Aya. I think she's playable for, let's say, around a third of the story, maybe less. Even while playing as her motivations were very unclear. One minute she would be murder/revenge crazy like Bayek. Then next time she would be dismissive of their mission and riding the Cleopatra hype train. It was confusing, as were her naval missions. It was cool and all to get some of that nautical nostalgia, but the missions felt out of place and almost unconnected to the story, almost as if the nautical segments and all her missions in general were just tacked on halfway through production. For all I know they were, but if not, that just seems like bad writing, which is not great for a single player only game, especially Assassin's Creed. I just feel like she could have been handled in a better way, and honestly I feel like adding an Animus database would actually help me here, as it could fill in the gaps as to what was happening in these presumably historical events. I say presumably, I can't really be bothered googling things, nor should you have to understand the game's storyline, almost as if I was expected to know what was happening, which I didn't. Enough of it, the past, no, let's talk about the now. The present day story was... weird. It almost felt completely pointless because there was so little of it. They never introduce who you are at all unless you want to read through all those tedious files, which I don't. And the segments are so short and spaced out that they're completely forgettable. When you're attacked by Abstergo and your friend over the radio is presumably shot, you don't have any idea what's happening or why you should care because you haven't spent enough time with the characters to care about them. I basically went meh and walked back to the Animus, which I never do. I always find the modern day stuff to be interesting. I mean, the best part was the very end when Papa Miles showed up, but even that wasn't developed at all. It was just kinda there. If all the Layla stuff wasn't in the game, it wouldn't have changed a single thing, which is kind of a bad sign. I think there was potential for an interesting plot with Layla, and there possibly still could be, but right now all we know about her is that she's inventive and she gets angered easily.
Ibad, a little personal space, huh?
And that's really bad considering she's our actual main character, she's the one going into the Animus. I mean, you can learn more about her on her laptop, but I mean, reading? That's fair enough to learn about extra info, like in the database, but not to learn about the main character and who they actually are, just like I said before. On that point, the game's kind of the worst on both fronts. It doesn't explain enough in-game for you to fully understand what's going on unless you spend 45 minutes reading all the backstory, and while in the Animus, it throws too much at you and you end up with no idea what's going on because you have no context. Also, at one point in the game you meet a kid named Ezio and it's really weird and I don't like it. Okay, that's me done with spoilers now. I want to talk about the soundtrack for a second. I know there's some people who couldn't care less about the background music of a game, but I find it to be a very important part, and Assassin's Creed franchise agrees with me. Every game has a distinct sound and music to help convey tone, and they always do a good job matching the setting. For example, we had the light-hearted sea shanty-esque Black Flag music. We had the dancing violin of Syndicate's music. And we had the serious bass tunes of Brotherhood's soundtrack. And while Origins does have a distinct sound and convey a certain tone, I found the soundtrack to be a little lackluster. Music is of course very subjective, and this isn't exactly one of my big complaints, but I think it's something still to note. It's very possible. The pause ambience, I hated it. I really hated it. It sucks. Finally, let's get to the part no one cares about. Achievements. This game has a season pass option, so I presume we're not done with achievements quite yet, but currently the game has 50 achievements worth 1,000 gamer score in total. I have to say I found the list to be very balanced with a good mix of challenge and completionism, resulting in about a week to 100% if you're sad like me. I do kind of miss that there wasn't 100% game completion achievement, as I found myself skipping most of the side quests towards the end. But hey, that's also my choice. You can do them if you want to. All in all, I don't think I should give a rating or anything. The game's fun, and if you like Assassin's Creed and RPGs, you'll probably enjoy it, and if you don't, you won't. Well, that's all I've got to say. Do you agree? Disagree? Should I be cursed and locked in a doll for thousands of years, only to be reawakened by a bad archaeologist and then attempt to take over the world with a skybeam? Let me know. I'll see you next time.